All right, let's jump right into this explainer of the ancient Yoga Vasistha. Today, we're stepping into the roles of both scholar and student as we demystify Canto 4. Imagine just sitting at the feet of Sage Vasistha, ready to have the very fabric of your reality completely deconstructed. Whether you're new to Eastern philosophy or a lifelong student, get ready for a profound, classical journey into the actual mechanics of consciousness.
We have a brilliant cognitive roadmap ahead of us today. We'll be moving from the mechanics of the grand illusion to the nature of Maya. We'll explore time and space, deconstruct the ego, unpack some classical verses of awakening, and finally close with some real, practical applications for your life. Okay, Section 1, the grand illusion, or the web of the mind. Let's start right at the foundation of the Guru's teaching, which is the realization that the world around us is essentially an intricate trap.
So, is our reality simply a projection of the mind? It's a wildly provocative question, right? But it sits at the absolute heart of Canto 4. Thousands of years ago, classical sages were already questioning the validity of our physical senses. They were putting forward the idea that the universe isn't really made of matter, but is fundamentally a projection of the human mind. Think of it like a dream. When you're dreaming, the world around you feels tangibly real, solid, and bound by absolute rules. But the second you wake up, you realize the entire landscape was generated solely by your own consciousness. You see, the Yoga Vasistha is asserting that our waking life is simply a denser, collective version of this exact same mental projection.
Now, if you recall from the preceding cantos, our young disciple Sri Ram was overwhelmed by a deep disillusionment with the world. And here, Sage Vasistha doesn't just pat him on the back and comfort him. No, he completely dismantles the very existence of the world that's causing all that grief. We are literally dissecting the ancient blueprint of consciousness itself, peeling back the layers of perception to show Sri Ram that the source of his sorrow is an entirely fabricated reality.
Moving on to Section 2, the nature of Maya, or the world-like trap.
To really understand this trap, we have to talk about Maya. Now, Maya is often loosely translated as illusion, but in this classical context, it's referring to the incredibly powerful, unconscious force that compels our minds to perceive the unreal as totally real. Let's ground this by reciting a key verse. Avidya namni yane ha, sasadrupa hi vidyate. Yaya jaga didam sarvam, kalpitam vyoma vat shunyam. This introduces a super important term, avidya, which means deep-seated spiritual ignorance.
So what's the literal translation telling us? It reveals that the world is an empty projection. Just as the sky looks like a solid blue dome above us, but is actually boundless, formless space, avidya projects a solid-feeling universe out of absolute emptiness. The world is a mirage, sustained entirely by our own unknowing. Avidya isn't just a lack of facts, it's an active, obscuring force. It covers up the truth of pure consciousness and projects the illusion of multiplicity. Because we are ignorant of our true nature, we mistake this mirage for a permanent home, continually pouring all our energy into a city that only exists in the sky of our imagination.
The really crucial point here is balancing these two ideas. On one hand, the world feels undeniably real to our physical senses, but spiritually, it's a grand projection derived from the mind's latent desires. The text strongly warns us against opposite thinking, our habit of constantly judging everything as good or bad, pleasure or pain. This dualism binds us to the illusion. It forces us to treat the unreal as absolute reality, which unfortunately guarantees endless suffering. By engaging in dualism, we are unknowingly reinforcing the very walls of our own mental prison.
Let's move to Section 3, Time, Space, and Consciousness. This is where we see how this illusion expands into the text's astonishing theories on multidimensionality.
Before we can even begin to grasp space and time, we absolutely have to understand Brahma, the singular, eternal, pure consciousness. This absolute reality is indivisible and perfectly still. Every galaxy, every timeline, every physical form you can think of is simply spanda, which means a mere vibration or ripple upon the surface of this infinite consciousness. Just imagine a perfectly calm ocean. The water itself is Brahma, but when a breeze stirs, waves start to form, rise, and crash. Those waves are spanda. They appear to have their own distinct forms and lifespans, but fundamentally, they are never, ever separate from the ocean itself. Our physical universe is literally just one of these cosmic ripples.
And what's fascinating is how the sage describes time. It's not a straight line.
It's a repeating mental construct across massive cosmic ages called kalpas. A kalpa is a vast cycle of universal creation and dissolution. Vashishtha explains that chronological time is totally artificial. It only seems to pass because our thoughts happen in a sequence. Without that succession of thoughts, time ceases to exist. Think about that for a second. If you can completely still the mind and stop the habitual march of thoughts, the illusion of past, present, and future instantly collapses. You step right outside of the kalpic cycle and experience reality as a singular, eternal now. These points reveal a highly sophisticated, classical cosmology. We're talking about infinite universes existing simultaneously, all stacked within the supreme space of consciousness. Because space is just a manifestation of mental vibration, consciousness isn't bound by physical distance at all. The text even suggests that within a single atom, entire universes can unfold, each with its own unique physics and timelines. So, your physical body? It's not your true identity. It's merely a localized focal point, just a tiny aperture through which the cosmos is currently observing itself. You are the infinite space, temporarily choosing to view existence through the narrow, zoomed-in lens of a human lifespan.
Which brings us nicely to Section 4, the mind and ignorance, deconstructing the ego.
If reality is a dimensional web, what actually keeps us trapped in it? The Yoga Vasistha points the finger squarely at ahankar, the ego. Listen to how the sage highlights this direct link. Ahankarak sheye kshine drishte sati paramartata. Shamyat yesha jagat brantig. Ahankar literally translates to the I maker. It's the false assumption of a separate, isolated self. It is the ego that stubbornly insists on standing apart from the singular Brahma.
To put it bluntly, the literal meaning here is uncompromising. The text doesn't suggest we try to manage or befriend our ego. It explicitly calls for its complete and total destruction. Without the I maker to anchor it, the illusion of a separate suffering world simply vanishes. It's a radical demand for the absolute surrender of the false self. So the mind acts as an unconscious trap fueled by vasanas, our latent desires and habitual thoughts. Vashishtha gives Sri Ram some brilliant advice here. Do not wage a direct war against your desires. Fighting them only empowers the ego. Instead, you dissolve them at their root. You literally starve the ego by dropping all dualistic, opposite thinking. When you no longer crave pleasure or fear pain, the vasanas wither away, and the mind is rendered completely powerless.
Let's dive into Section 5, Verses of Awakening. This features one of the most striking metaphors in the entire canto, the parable of the thread and the beads.
Yatha tantu vinashetu muktaharo vinashyati tatha mano vinashetu jagat bhrantir viliyate. Just as a necklace of pearls is scattered when the thread is broken, the illusion of the world dissolves when the mind is destroyed.
I absolutely love this visual. Literally, the bees represent all of our worldly experiences, our pain, our joys, our identities, our concepts of time and space. Because they string together in a sequence, they appear solid and inherently connected. We build our whole sense of self around this heavy necklace of experiences, but they are only held together by the invisible, continuous thread of the mind. Cut that mental thread, and the entire structure of worldly existence shatters, leaving only pure consciousness. When the mind stops linking one desire to the next, the burden of the past and the anxiety of the future scatter just like unthreaded pearls.
This step-by-step destruction of the mind is exactly how Vasistha guides Sri Ram to his majestic awakening. Through this realization, Sri Ram drops the anxiety of the mind entirely and arrives at true salvation. He rests purely and eternally in his original, true self-form, completely transcending the illusion of the physical world.
Okay, Section 6, Practical Application. This is all about living free in the matrix.
Because, let's be real, why does this ancient wisdom matter for us today? It's one thing to say the world is an illusion, it's another to have to wake up and fulfill your daily duties inside of it. The practical application here is profound. We are instructed to act in the world without being bound by it. This is true inner renunciation. You don't need to run away to a cave in the Himalayas or abandon your family. You stay exactly where you are, but you shift your perspective entirely. You perform your duties like an actor playing a role in a grand cosmic play, totally unattached to the drama, completely free from the ego. When the script calls for sorrow, the actor cries, but inwardly remains untouched. When the play calls for triumph, the actor smiles, but doesn't let it inflate their ego. This, right here, is how you live free. So, let's wrap this all up. Canto 4 basically teaches us that reality is a mental projection, and true salvation is simply waking up from the dream. We've traced the logic from the cosmic illusion of Maya through the vibrations of multidimensional space, all the way down to the practical snapping of the ego's thread. We have learned that opposite thinking and latent desires are the glue of our suffering. By stepping back, observing the mind without attachment, and starving the ego of its dualistic fuel, we initiate that supreme awakening. The world doesn't magically disappear from our vision, rather our ignorant belief in its absolute reality is what finally dissolves.
Which leads us to this final thought, as we prepare to transition into Canto 5, where we'll be exploring the deeper practices of actually maintaining this awakened state. Think about this. If you hold the power to shape the vibration of your reality, what will you choose to project with your mind tomorrow? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, keep questioning everything, and I will